Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. I'm coming from Palo Alto today, Dave. Where are you coming from?
Coming from New Jersey, where it's not as beautiful. There's not as many lovely greenery by you. This and that. We are going to be discussing everything going on in figure skating and in lovely Palo Alto. So if you are new here, please subscribe below. Remember to smash that like button. I'm sorry, I have my earbuds in. I am naturally muffled today. I have COVID for the second time. I just found out this morning. So I just
repeat offender. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I've been boosted, and I was thinking about getting the second booster very soon. I was looking into scheduling that, and look. I'm not going to make any excuses for it. I think I probably got it from physical therapy. Like we're all touching all the same stuff, even though you try to watch. I could have gotten it from Pilates. Who knows? I do a couple of things where we touch things other people touch, and who knows where.
It's not that you ddid something wrong. Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
I work from home, so it's like, how did I get it? Well, I let everyone know that I've been around. The unpleasant text you have to send people. Like, I didn't realize I was sick. I felt like I didn't sleep well Wednesday or Thursday night, and when I don't sleep well, it's usually a sign. I'm usually a pretty good sleeper unless there's something going on, maybe anxiety or something like that. But I wasn't sleeping well the last 2 nights, and I just felt a little off. But I've also been like switching up my workouts a little bit, and I did this great eccentrics class with Sasha, who launched his own like online classes, and he was the teacher when I went with Megan Hamill that did eccentrics. Right. So like they engage your muscles in different ways, and like I was really feeling sore from that. But both times that I've gotten COVID, I felt soreness in my lower back first.
Interesting.
In like a weird way. Okay. But we did so many posture exercises that I was like really feeling my low abs and some of my back stuff that I've been working on I don't know if I talked about this. I had a pelvic upslip that I competed with this year that was like incredibly painful, and I didn't realize it. And the orthopedist didn't find it. He was just like, "Oh, I'll give you muscle relaxers. I'll give you steroids." Like, it was so painful when they tested it. The PT was like, push down, and like I had like he said resist me, and he's like pushing down, and I had like no strength on my left side. And then after he like manipulated it and put me back in place, I like had normal strength. So it was like just a really weird stuff. So I've been like fixing my SI joint and stuff, and like
bodies are weird.
So the other thing about the SI joint is that it like impacts the same nerve as your bladder. So like I've also been going to the bathroom more lately, and I'm like, oh my God, am I becoming my father? Like, oh no.
Gosh. You do have similar builds and aesthetics. I mean, that tracks.
But like, oh my God. I'm like, I don't want to be going to the bathroom 4 times at night. What's happening? Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
it seems like you're hydrated, and that's great. Hydration is key, Dave. Okay.
Anyway, I've had just like low grade. It's okay. It's all right. I don't understand that people were really, I felt like there was some COVID shaming of the skaters, or there's like COVID, I see amongst fans, like there'll be people like, does Nathan have COVID? Why didn't he do? It's like, well, it seems like COVID's going around a lot, especially as we're more back to real lives. And luckily, as people are more boosted and have some degrees of immunity, it seems like the symptoms are less. But yes, people are still getting it.
They get it. Yeah, whatever.
Luckily, it's becoming more of a thing that we are living with. So yeah, I don't.
You're living out loud, Dave. Good for you.
Living out loud, yeah. I'm like, annoyed that I'm not skating this weekend, but that's okay. Anyway, what's going on this week, Jonathan?
I mean, you know what I'm actually most intrigued to talk to you about and we're going to get into. I was very intrigued by the Christy Crawl interview and a couple of other like Christy Ness. Sorry. There's too many Christys.
I'm fascinated by her. I recommended Paulina to interview her.
Well, it was an excellent choice. But the pressing issue for me that I want to get your take on are the ISU presidential election things going on. Because we read sort of the breakdown from both Susanna Rahkamo and from Patricia St. Is that right?
Yes. And I was triggered by one of them. So.
Oh. Let's discuss, said Trigger Dave. Which one triggered you and why? Go.
Because I've worked in corporate communications for years. for an insurance company. So I'm really used to looking at these really polished documents that say nothing so beautifully.
Yes, I mean, just to hop in here, like, this is very different yet very the same, is I judge for all those Miss America competitions. And so it reminds me of reading a lot of the materials that it's a lot of fluff and flowery wording that's promoting like world peace and I can do everything. And yet there's no information on how, there's no information on the actual substance of it. And I actually found both of these two women's platforms to sort of be absent of the actual information and just sort of dreamy.
Well, they're trying to be not too specific, right? To not alienate people. Now, these are the two figure skaters that are running. The ISU for the last decades has had a speed skater running. And I was talking to my coach, Igor Lukanin, who is obviously involved with the Azerbaijani Federation, who's going to the ISU Congress. And we were just talking about, you know, why it is that a speed skater has kept being involved in the sport. And he was like, you have to understand that like when speed skaters have meetings, they're very quick. Like they don't have a lot of things to debate.
They're speedy. They're all about time. Okay.
They're all about time, but if you think about it, they don't have the same like politics and drama that figure skaters do. So they also probably don't have the same animus against them, right? That people probably don't hate each other for the same reasons that they do.
Their results aren't going to be as controversial every time. Yeah.
He's, you know, apparently the speed skater meetings go very quickly, and obviously the ISU, you know, the figure skating ones go on for days. So everyone is jockeying and not trusting each other, and there's things going on like that. So I could see a speed skater building consensus really quickly. My hope is that a figure skater would finally run the organization. But
and this would be the first, if either of these two women are elected, they would be the first female leader as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that whoever is the president should hire the other ones as vice presidents. That's my personal view, is because, okay, I think that Pat St. Peters is the most polished. From what I have read, she says that she's been at an international law firm for 30 years. I immediately got that kind of polish and corporate rhetoric where they're not going to shift the cruise ship too quickly. You know, they're going to move very slowly, but it's not going to upset the apple cart or scare people.
But yet with Patricia St. Peters, she does kind of have to do it quickly, because with the age requirement, or the age, whatever that rule is, she can only do one term. So then I also wonder.
But they're not going to change the sport in her. I didn't get from Pat St. Peters that she wants to change the sport. I got from Susanna Rahkamo that she at least seems to get it in terms of the fact that we need to find out who the audiences are. I mean, she even mentioned reaching bloggers and things like that in her, which to me at least meant that she understands that the sport has an audience problem and that we need to reach people better. And I at least liked the way she said we have to understand what the audience of each division and each sport is. So I thought that that was really interesting.
I just didn't like the way she broke it down in her material, because she was like, we like ice dance because it's artistic, and we like single skating because it's brave and technical based. And I was like,
she reminded, do you know, when I read Susanna Rahkamo, I'm like, oh, she seems like a wonderful liberal candidate who's never going to win. That's what I really thought. Like,
that was the vibe I got. I mean, to me, what's the pro for her and her materials is exactly what you're saying. She's like, we have to update our streaming services. We have to figure out how we can utilize all this technology available to us to sort of put it forward, and was very much about the athlete's well-being and safety for the athlete and all this sort of stuff, where again, the Patricia St. Peter thing just sounded like maybe more of the same. She wants to put together a committee that's going to make sure everything is fine, or, you know, whatever.
She could lead an insurance company tomorrow. Okay, I would hire, but I think she's got a better shot at winning, because I at least got from hers that she has a lot of experience in like reality, but I think that she needs visionaries around her. And I don't know if she's interested in that or not. Her materials said enough, but didn't say enough to me, right? Like they touched on everything, but I didn't get the heft.
That's why I'd love to hear from them. I wish that like the ISU allowed for a platform in which they would speak, in which they would talk. I don't know if debate is the right word, but like, I would love to hear from all of them.
Wouldn't you want to know, first question, if the war in Ukraine ended tomorrow, how would you handle Russia re-entering the sport? And how would you go about allotting spots? How would you go disciplinary? I mean, like real issues, I think that we have to address. How do we go about growing the audience? I mean, what I did think that Pat St. Peter really offered is she kept hammering this point that when she took over the USFS, the Team USA was in a real recession, had no sponsors, and she was able to grow revenue by 40% without having to cut athlete funding. I thought that that was a really strong point. It didn't necessarily restore skating to greatness though, and I think that's a concern, you know, but the US, I think, had lost its position several years earlier, maybe around 2003, with things that had happened in the ISU. So I thought that that was interesting, but I was like, she at least is used to walking into a shitstorm. So I thought
and really even strong. You know, a quick Google search, and one of the things that always comes up is her with Maritzi and the Callahan sort of thing. And even when you read what she was saying to him, it's again, it says nothing. She's like, thanks for coming forward. You're helping by coming forward. And then she kind of like let it just fall from there, it seemed, you know.
I don't know enough about which article you're talking about, but I mean, look, I think anyone who is in USFS leadership, look, we know different things now than we did in 1999, and that doesn't necessarily excuse things that happened in 1999. So, I think everyone has soul searching to do about a number of issues that come up, but I can't imagine the sport had any idea what to do in 1999, and I can't imagine.
Well, this was the, sorry to interrupt. This was the meeting in Pyeongchang. When they met with him in the lobby, and she was sort of, you know, doing all of that stuff. But because I wonder just in general for the ISU voters, if her history with the US Federation is a pro or a con, if that is viewed as favoritism, or if they're like, ugh, the Americans, or they're like, oh great, she's run a federation, she knows what to do. I could see that being taken either way. Also, side note, what on earth are they doing in Thailand? Like, what a surprising choice for the ISU conference.
I kind of want to go. It sounds beautiful. Kristen and Igor are going. So
okay, yeah. Jealous. Is it just incentive to get people on vacation? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm jealous that they are going, and I want to see nice pictures. So Igor and her like, Dave, we had great time on vacation. Yes. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Enjoying the beach in between like ice sport discussions.
I agree with Christine S. And like Igor, I was like, Igor, raising the age is complete bullshit. I'm sorry. I said I agree. Like I said this to him before I listened to Christine S. And then I just agreed. It's the people are the problem. And I said, look, in gymnastics, they faked the ages of people for years. They've also done it in skating for years, but with the World Junior Figure Skating Championships, they faked ages for that for years, decades. So listen, go to the Internet Archive, type in Sway and Hans URLs of their current Wikipedias, go to the Internet Archive, and you will see all the oars listed. Their ages are not, we cannot cut open figure skaters like a tree and count the rings. However, there are discrepancies in the dates of birth for our current reigning Olympic champions that have had alternate dates over time that have now been scrubbed from the internet.
Although nothing's ever really scrubbed, is it? Yeah. That's the.
I believe that they are of age now, and that's the important thing. Okay.
Well, okay. So let's get into that Christine Ness interview.
Maybe some of this stuff with the cowboy hat wasn't, you know, I don't know who was fake. I haven't looked at shit like, who knows?
Amazing. The thing about Christy Ness I found so much of the interview that she did with Paulina very insightful, very interesting, a really great take on a lot of things. I don't know. I understand your reasoning for the age change being sort of just cosmetic. When she was talking about it, her approach to sort of the Russian scene in general, one, I like that she was like, I don't know what's happening, so I can't say. But she started saying things like, well, maybe they're just thin because they don't eat at McDonald's or something. And that's when you're sort of reminded, even this very well-spoken woman did grow up in this like strange bubble.
Can I tell you something? I have never met someone in figure skating who didn't have some sort of trigger around the issue of weight.
And that was clearly coming up. She was just saying like, you know, they're saying they work them too hard. They're saying they do this. And, you know, I give props to Paulina because she very gently corrected in a couple of moments. Like when Christy was like, well, the drugs, they can't even do anything. So what are we even talking about? And Paulina gently was like, but they can. If they can get you to train harder, longer, you're going to get jumps quicker.
It was one of Paulina's best interviews because she actually, sometimes she doesn't know the history of things, just being a younger person. But I thought in that case, she really knew that her stuff about the doping and had done her research. And I thought that she handled that really well.
I thought so too. Yeah.
I thought it was one of her best interviews for that. Yes. Is this so hard? Because it's, you know, the weight thing, it's so hard to talk about without bringing up specific people and examples, and you don't want to shame anyone. But when Christy Ness said, well, maybe they're thin because they're just eating really nutritious food. And then I was like, wait, we saw that some people were only like eating powders at the Olympics and only having liquid food. Like that's not.
And that's the argument.
But Christy might not know that. She might not be on Instagram following all of these people, but you have to use common sense. I think, and in general, I believe this is hard, but look, I don't know any coach that probably hasn't had a skater that has had issues with weight, but I believe Christy has had a skater who had issues with weight at the high level. So, but I don't know that Frank Harrell certainly has too, and everyone talks about him like he's one of the founding fathers of the country. So, yeah. Anyway, I thought that a lot of Christy's strength, and I think her strength as a coach, is she's very analytical. I think that she has some biomechanical strengths. Like she could be like a woman in business or engineering, and she seems tough without being completely crazy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's that like she's a little bit removed, but loves it, and is interested in the teaching and like I think she has some real strengths. So she had skaters at the 88, 92, and 94 games. She helped Chen Lu before Chen Lu was brought back to China. Remember, there was all of the politics prior to the 98 games, and there was issues with her and Li Mingzhu, but Li Mingzhu was kind of more like a coach manager, and she was farmed out to work with people like Frank Harrell and Carlo Fassi and Christy Ness, and I think was very trained. And I know that from talking to people who were in Edmonton when Christy Ness was there, she was a bit of an original Eteri. So Christy Yamaguchi used to do 2 full run-throughs back to back, like Paulina talked about, but then she would do a third run-through without her music to work on things. But
that's intense. Yeah.
It's intense. But I do think that she had real knowledge of skating skills and figures. Now, her skaters might not have always had the best skating skills of all time, but if you look at the athletes that she worked with, there was a consistency in their ability of like working the edge and things like that you notice. Like if you watch Susan Humphries and you watch Christy Yamaguchi, and you can see the effects of their training and of some of the edge quality and maybe placement over the blade that's missing now. I thought she had a really great point when she's like, all these moves in the field, it's like, it's all bullshit, just bring back the figures.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, yes.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Even if not competitively. Yeah.
Well, she had the best point. No one's going to do them if they're not competitive. No one's going to pay for the extra boots and the extra sessions, and no parent is going to be patient enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to have my kid trace circles when they need to be getting their triple Lutz, because they're not going to see the connection of the tracing of that and how it So I thought
I did also appreciate that she said, if we could just eliminate the word goat, I think it would be great for skating. And I thought, what a brilliant point, because all of it, it's so stupid. Actually, to me as a viewer, why would I watch if I know who's going to win? Or why are you saying this? Why the pressure? And whoever that is assigned to very rarely goes the way it's expected to, like at an Olympic Games. So I really did appreciate that sort of commentary as well. And I liked when she was talking about the coaching camps, where because she didn't have so much ego in it and she was confident and settled in her own ability, she could go send Christy over to Carlo or to whomever, Don Laws, and say, will you fix this? I can't figure out how to help her here. And I just found that really refreshing. Yeah. Because we've seen so many, especially in the United States, that fear of going elsewhere, or that if they do go elsewhere, that other person does have, an agenda and tries to steal. Like, it's gross.
It could be like Christy Ness, strong woman. Like, I just felt I'm like ready to go work with her. Okay, I just like, I'm telling you, she seems very. I don't think she seems that scary.
No, I think she seems grounded as a person, which many people in the sport seem to not be.
Oh, I could see her being scary. I think Alena's scarier. So
yeah, and scarier maybe just to be scary. Where I think like Christy seems to always have like something.
Oh, I think she's real intense, honey. Okay.
Yeah. I remember that footage of like Christy trying to train the triple axel at that time. Like there are a couple Christy Ness moments that I just love. And people, the fluff from '92, making the Christy Yamaguchi. I've always with Sandra, right?
Sandra and the creative, but the best part of that fluff piece that really, and Carol listening to the music at Christy Ness's house, and they're wearing the sweaters and like the whole, when Christy Ness comes to like check on the progress and like watch the program, and Sandra's like, I'm a little apprehensive about Christy Casgard, but like. I hope and you just like watch Christy has this like strong mama bear energy, like sitting in the stand. Love. Okay, that is the dream team. Okay, like that was just like.
And Christy indeed it was.
Not the most talented, as she said. Christy came to her with those cheated double sows. She got her to Olympic gold, baby. That Midori Ito was doing double axel, triple toe, or double axel, half loop, triple sow, right? Whatever she said.
Right.
But you thought like. That was a strategist and a mastermind, and had Carol Yamaguchi, and they were just like on it.
100%.
It was like really right. That was just like the right group of people together at the right time, and
the strategy was correct, because she was like, where can we bank the most? Who are we against, and how can we do the most of the thing that person can't do? And that's exactly what they did. And I thought it was really smart.
She was also one of the first coaches, I believe, to really incorporate off ice. And remember, they showed Christy Yamaguchi like weightlifting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Christy's husband, who she referenced, had something to do with the weightlifting, which was like obviously controversial at the time because it was like different than skating. So that was one of the things. Well, I mean, look, there's still debate in off ice. The cricket club likes to do Pilates. Other people believe that you should do weights. Other people don't believe that you should do weights in skating, or just use plyo. Like, there's just so many different about what is the appropriate.
I remember, I think it was Max Aaron that was talking to you. Like he like was so loving the bodybuilding, or like the weightlifting off the ice, that suddenly he came back one summer like way too built, and it had like thrown the whole thing off. Yeah, crazy.
So, there's always that debate in how much is like, what's the right balance in skating. But I believe you always see Christy doing those legs on that weight machine if you watch those fluff pieces. And then I remember Christy Ness was in like one of the Stars on Ice years. They had this fluff, and they showed Christy training. Of course, her mother was still watching as a professional, like 4 years in, right? Like keeping tabs on her, right? And Christy Ness was like, she should hit her athletic peak at age 30. Age 30. And you're just like, but she likes to tour. And you're like, oh, that Christy Ness, she'll kick your ass. I was like, all right, let's do it.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Speaking of other people who would kick your ass, Eteri is in Boston. And Jonathan, so I posted an email from the Skating Club of Boston. And it was so funny because people within the Skating Club of Boston were like freaking, like, oh my God, is Becky gonna get mad that she wrote it? And like, it wasn't about that at all.
She wrote nothing inappropriate.
Nothing inappropriate. It was a complete, like, standard email.
100%. That also to me was like, respect her space. She's not there for a professional reason. Yeah.
Well, it's a really, and Russia has had a million articles, and I would like you to read some of the quotes about this, because I think we have to explain what the rules are, and I'll explain why I posted it after. So, but if you see that, Tarasova was like, they were all blaming things on the West, and the people that were complaining about America the most were like Tarasova and Julin, two people who made a lot of money coaching here.
100%. But also, this is the thing, when we read those translations from those articles, they come to them, it's all, I mean, they're baiting, they know exactly the response they're going to get. They're like, America's angry Eteri is coming to Boston. And it was like, who said that? Who said they're angry? Who's angry? What are you talking about? So then they start almost being
people are angry. Like if you read the comments, that's not.
But like, are we really going to Julin and Tarasova to be like, some people on social media have commented that? Like, they make it seem as if the Federation, you know, put out a statement or something, and then they're sending backlash about it.
Well, if you notice, Sports.ru has not covered Eteri like they usually have over the last several months. You notice they've become like more pro Plushenka. Like they're not anti-Eteri. Like they're not that stupid. They don't want their career sidelined like Yelena Vaitsahovskaya, but they haven't treated her with the same reverence, and because she has not been super pro-war.
Right.
You haven't seen her with the Z on.
She's been quiet. She's been
very quiet, and they've been quiet about her until she went to the U.S. and then they had something that they could jump on, right?
Right.
So they're freaking out that this email did say, you know, you're expected to follow the rules and so is she, which in America, that's not crazy. That's just actually like a reminder.
Yeah.
What they're saying and why they wrote the email, and like, one, people are going to freak that she's here. So they had to do that damage control, and they had to set that expectation so people weren't caught off guard. You know, perhaps the number one villain in skating is coming into there. I mean, Jonathan.
But I feel like some parents were going to try to corner them and be like, work with my kid while you're here.
Jonathan, if you knew that a country was, the FBI was incredible, like maybe say you're going to Germany, the FBI of Germany, whatever it's called, right? That they're going to be investigating you. They think that you took illegal lozenges and gave them to your skaters or gave them to your singers during vocal competition.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And that you knew that they were investigating you, but that it was, you know, maybe a year off. Would you fly to Germany and be like, I'm gonna go spend this time with my daughter?
Yeah, because it's not just spending time with the daughter. They're not just going on vacation and visiting and reconnecting. It's through an ice rink. Do you know what I mean?
What kind of cluster B personality do you have to like go to the scene of the crime?
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's that feeling of invincibility. Yeah.
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 Like, of course, go see your daughter. Go to some hotel somewhere. Go hang out. Go reconnect.
Also, the idea that like Benoit, who's good friends with Razanov, is choreographing for Eteri, who works with. I mean, again, it just shows you the triangulation and manipulation that is going on. Eteri contacted the USFS about whether or not Diana could represent the US, because that happened. So, right. And that's not been determined, because remember, Diana was born here. So it's right. Not with, but then what happens to Gleb?
Right.
They would either have to end that partnership, or could he ever get Olympic citizenship here? Would they have to get married? And then would
the Federation ever release him?
Yeah. Of course, right? Yeah. But the thing that Russia isn't telling you is that Russia has no money for training right now. So that's another reason why it's probably, Eteri's like, let me spend as long as possible in the US before, like they're not living high on the hog the way they were before this. So anyway, Eteri can't coach in the US right now without breaking a ton of rules, because she doesn't have US, she would have to have insurance, and she would have to be safe sport approved.
Right.
Now, I have been to rinks where someone who's safe sport banned coaches, but they don't work with US skaters. However, they're not as famous as Eteri Tutberidze. All it takes is one parent who's angry at someone or not blinded by her star power to do it. And I have to say, another coach of Olympic champions who I've never worked with said to me that he didn't feel Eteri could be as successful here without Dr. Shevetsky.
Yes.
I did say.
Yeah. Because that's the secret. Like that's this whole like what's the mystery there? Like mystery solved.
Well, they all have systems, right? When these notice that none of the Russian coaches who have come here have ever been as successful here. And it's not just because of the drugs. Even like Eteri is very similar to Galina, right? Like in terms of how she organizes, and she's admitted it, but if you look at how she organizes her team and the role of Sergei Dudakov, so Galina worked with the guy, Valentin Nikolaev, who was also like really in charge of the jumps. Like that was his job. She was the overall coach and the head coach, but he was the jump coach. So it's like Eteri is the overall coach and Dudakov. Is Eteri as valuable if she doesn't have the same jump coach with her? Like so much of this is like the right people working together.
The team, yeah.
The team is real strength. And we've seen it in NCAA programs and gymnastics. And like you have to have the underlings. Even the Karolis, when they came here, they had a guy, Rick Newman, who taught all the skills because Bella wasn't actually a gymnast. So they had someone develop the athletes technically before he did the finishing, right? And without those people and the systems in place, like Dominic Mociano had another technical coach work with her before Bella took over and then basically injured her. Before that happens, if the system is different, it doesn't work. So you see Tatiana Tarasova, when she was coaching Alexieva, who's been the coach of like Tiffany and Jonathan, she worked under Tarasova and did the technical work with the ice dance team, and Tarasova did the yelling and the arms
grandstanding
and the grandstanding, but she and the mastermind and they do the mastermind, they pick the packaging, they have a real role in this sport. You don't like, and people don't want to like admit, and it's all about like who gets the credit. But if you notice, when the teams split, the individual people rarely ever do as well, but they do well together. So even like the Browns are working with someone who used to work under Dubova, but that's who their technical coach is right now, and that's who's head coaching them. So like all of this stuff is like these teams are very important. You have Eteri without Dudakov, she's just collecting however much money she wants to have here. I think people do well in the short term. Maybe they'll work a little harder because she's yelling, but you're not going to see this long-term development of like the next Nathan Chen.
But even we've seen sort of at the boards, you know, her occasionally telling someone to bend their knees or doing this gesture is obviously not where the substance is in their technique or the process. It's just sort of the seal of approval. And again, like you're saying, like this is the angle we're going to take. This is how we're going to market you this season. And there is value to that. But you're saying, if you're just PRing, and there's no...
I don't think that they're just PRing. I think that they have strategy and mastermind and enough knowledge of enough areas. But again, it's like Pat St. Peter running the ISU, but having experts underneath in certain who are in charge and like important delegation. I think when you go from being the overall mastermind to being in charge of the different departments is where you start to see weaknesses in people. So I think that if you were to see Eteri all of a sudden be in charge of the jumps, like it doesn't work. Even you see like Marina Zueva, she was originally with Igor Spielbach, right? When she and Igor split, she brought over Oleg Epstein. Oleg Epstein was like an actual fundamental ice dance coach. He developed Olga Ganisheva of Olga and Alexei, Igor Lukanin, like he coached him. He coached, I coached Yuri's wife. Like, he was the actual like technical coach beyond people. So they just put him in that role. They all have these like Russian systems of like a head coach and people under them. And they act like the head coach is the real brilliance. Now they are brilliant at like putting teams together and having the right specialists in place, but they're not the one that's going to teach you the quad lutz. So, but Eteri's going to come here, and an ambitious parent is going to be like, oh my God, let me pay her $300 an hour, and she is going to make my daughter a champion. And it's never going to work unless she has the right technical specialist under her that can match with the technique that she knows. So she would have to have like Dudakov.
But also, what are you going to do in such a short period of time? I think it's insulting. Yeah, I think it's insulting to the, I was going to say art form, but like the entire technique, to think it's just a bunch of like tricks. Like the idea is like, it would take a long period of time to sort of create that muscle memory, to work with the skater over time, to get to know their habits. Like
I think Tarasova improved Sasha Cohen. She changed,
but not over one lesson or one week, over a period of time.
But let's say Eteri did coach here, which would be so crazy. And like, listen, I could name so many parents who I think would pay her the money.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have a system where the USFS is supplying drugs to people. Do I believe that there are skating parents who would buy whatever drugs they would need to? Yeah. And then the second Eteri didn't pay enough attention to their kid, those parents would all turn on each other and start spilling stuff. So it probably wouldn't work as well. So she'd probably just be collecting money here. She should probably team up with Igor Spielbond and just like mastermind ice dance. And, you know, choreograph and just make easy money on the side until Russia's allowed back in. Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, Plishenko is trying to build an ice dance team.
You can be in Miami. You can make whatever money you want. All those people are going to go to you. They're going to pay top dollar. You won't have any champions per se, as we see these coaches aren't as successful here. But you know, you'll be enough.
You'll be making your money. Yeah,
you'll be making your money. Find a rich Russian oligarch who's hanging out here. You'll be just fine. Okay, like.
So she's there now.
She's in Boston. She has been in Boston. Benoit's been choreographing some sexy program for Diana. So also, like, is Benoit moving to Boston? That's been like the kind of negotiation. Do the Letovs want him there? I mean, they're the alphas there. Okay, people are real scared of Olga. Okay.
Okay.
She's so nice to me.
Okay. Amazing.
But I believe she could be scary.
Okay.
She once was watching an episode of The Skating Lesson in real time, texting someone thinking it was me and it wasn't. And it's hilarious. It happened. Okay.
That's so funny.
But then she liked the end of it. So yeah.
Okay. She came around.
True story.
Okay, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I digress. I think Eteri could make so much money here. I'm not saying she could win, but maybe.
But maybe that's not the goal. She already has one.
Yeah.
She has all her accolades. Maybe she just wants to break in now.
Yeah. So we're seeing that there's no Cup of Russia this year. I mean, Rostelecom Cup. And now, no Cup of China.
Yeah, canceled insanely early. I mean,
allegedly due to a no COVID policy, which is like so ironic. Can we just be honest? The country's now so anti-COVID. They just had the Olympics there, like
right when it was much more involved. Yeah, but I
now
suppose
they have no skaters. Sorry to cut you off. They have no.
No.
And and they're oddly politically tied to Russia. Like it does seem like things aren't maybe what they seem. What were you going to say about?
I mean, just that at least it's early enough that they can plan ahead of time. I mean, that was the thing. Like when they sort of canceled last minute last time around, it did sort of seem like now a cluster to try to figure something out. I mean, because we still don't know. Are they deciding at the conference or do they just decide separately? I would assume it was something like Finland and Korea or something would step forward.
You would think, but there's still not a lot of time to set up an international event. Unless maybe someone running for ISU president to be like, oh, my country could host it. I mean, that could be possible.
Like someone from Finland, in fact.
Someone from Finland, someone from Korea, right? That could happen.
Right.
I'm sure the Skating Club of Boston would love to host a second event. They seem very aggressive. I mean,
yeah.
egalitarian.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It could be like, didn't Courchevel have 2 of the junior Grand Prix last year? Like they could just do them back to back.
Oh, Doug Z at Skating Club of Boston, he would love to. Okay, are you kidding? I mean, do you realize how aggressive they are, Jonathan? But I was thinking, do you think it'll help skating that, like, I mean, I bought tickets for Skate America. If it's really concentrated and you don't have all the empty seats, maybe the environment will be more exciting and also more exciting on TV, because it won't have like all the people with the empty seats spread out. So maybe the energy will like look better, right? How you can make things even look bigger and grander on TV. If that works, post nationals there, make skating look hot. You know, you have it in like.
Again, I'm all about centralizing a lot of those locations consistently. Like I would love if it was just always Skate America there, always nationals elsewhere. I think it could create more of a culture behind it. But maybe
Skating Club of Boston looks like they want to beat Colorado, they want to beat California. Like they look like they are in it to win it. It's just respect.
So do it. Yeah, Cranberry Cup for everyone.
It was a great time. US International Skating Classic, everyone withdrew. Not such a great time.
Exactly.
No, I think it's good. The other thing is that there's been like a lot of drama in US figure skating lately because they're changing the test structure, which this was the big drama at the governing council. So they're going to change the names of the tests to try to streamline them and perhaps eventually combine some of the levels. So they would probably maybe combine like pre-juvenile and juvenile, pre-preliminary and preliminary, and they would make it so that someone could take their senior test but still compete novice, which of course would lead things to sandbagging, which perhaps already exists. But this is going to be lots of drama at the lower levels that perhaps no one that watches senior skating will care about. And every skating mother watching the show probably cares about a lot because they're gonna be like, wait, that girl in juvenile should be an intermediate. And this is okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And apparently the adults were super upset because sandbagging is like super common and controversial in adult skating. And apparently the adult skaters were kind of dismissed as being not super important at the last governing council, according to some people that I talked to. And that, I mean, adult skating, in my opinion, is a big moneymaker for USFS.
I would think a massive one, yeah.
Do I think that they really care? Are they worried about adult skating? I think they care in proportion to everything else, not as much.
Okay.
But I think the adult skaters are like such tremendous volunteers and so passionate and members of, because they're going to be in the sport for much longer than a kid, right? Like an adult skater could be in the sport for 60, 70 years, right?
Right.
So they're going to be on committees and judging and doing this and that and that. But maybe we're not afforded the same deference or respect at the governing council.
Got it.
They care about the people that are going to the Olympics, and that is.
Now, maybe this is an ignorant question. Do they have the same kind of adult skating programs in other countries as well?
Ish. I mean, there's like obviously the event is about to take place, like the ISU World Competition in Germany. Right. Yeah. And the US has, like, I think the strongest system.
Okay. Because it was interesting. Like also, Susanna in her materials for running for president was also talking a lot about synchro.
Yes.
Which I thought was very inclusive, you know.
And synchro is huge in the Scandinavian countries. So especially in Finland is so big in synchro.
But I didn't know, again, like the discussion of adult skating, for instance, doesn't seem to appear in those.
Well, synchro has international competitions, so they're going to care more about it. And it keeps people in the sport. And I've always thought about synchro is you do see big audiences as events, because if you think about it, if you have 16 people on a team, actually more because they have alternates, right, and coaches, but like those people all have families and parents, right, and friends that could all go to the event. So let's say each people brings 4 to 6 people to an event, you could fill up a stadium like that.
Right.
I don't think it's caught on enough to have like viewership in the masses, but I do think for an event, you could sell tickets, right? And I think that's important. So, and yeah, I think it's important growth because I think it keeps people in the sport. I think as you're seeing, I think that the ISU rules inherently, with it becoming more and more jump focused, I just don't think bodies can last that long, right? Doing the elements. But I do think that they can last doing synchro. So that would keep someone in the sport longer, potentially.
Okay.
That's just
interesting.
I don't know. What did you think of Ilia Malinen's quad axel?
Oh my gosh. It gets more and more amazing. It's one of those things, it looks fun to do. Like I can't imagine like the feeling of it, because like the impact on my knees, I would be like, oh my gosh. But just seeing him like fly through the air that way, I was like, it genuinely looks fun. And it looks really solid.
So obviously he's insanely talented and insanely mentally talented to have the guts to do all of that stuff. I would like to see the 10-minute video of the evolution of like, what kind of spills are you taking? You have to do all of these things.
When it doesn't go well, how does it not go well? Yeah, that would be informative.
I would love to know. But we see him doing all of this stuff. But what I was thinking is like, okay, if it's him and you're coaching him, would your goal be to win tomorrow? Or would you be like, we got to slow down and save you for another 4 years? Because do you think his body, or do you got to
strike? I think you got to strike while it's hot with this kind of. So. And again, but that's also the bigger discussion at hand is, do you strike while it's hot, or are you trying to get people to sort of go for the arc? Because how old is he?
I mean, he's young. I mean, he's like,
maybe
a high school senior. So like,
okay. So like what, 17?
I mean, he would still be relatively young at the next Olympics, but you got to think like he's doing quads and quad axles. The potential for injury is obviously significant.
Enormous. And there's a limitation to how much the body's going to withstand, especially knowing how fearless his approach is.
Yeah, and how often was like Nathan not training with Raphael and training on his own and going back and forth? And did that help him? Did that hurt him? Like what?
Right. And in the beginning, we weren't seeing all of that jump evolution from Nathan. It was a lot of quad toes and sows, which at the time was like, oh, all these crazy quads. But like the Lutz and the flip and all of that stuff started happening much later in his process. So I don't know how sustainable this is, or what kind of skating skills or programs are going to come out of this that allow him to do that, and sort of like how this is all going to play out. It's one thing where if we were doing a jumping event, like those jump off events that they were having in some of the Russian competitions, like this is where you want something like that for him. Like go do that thing they used to do in Colorado. Like, go try it there and do these things. I don't know how it ever works in a program, but it's still interesting to see. But there is that part of me that's like, I don't know about its sustainability, but in the immediate future, he could have a lot of press and success with it.
I think it'll get a ton of attention in the US. Yeah. Instagram, social, like that kind of stuff, especially if it's marketed correctly.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They have to tell the backstory of his parents. Like his parents need to become more media savvy and tell the story about how, look, they're Russian, but didn't get the respect or the funding, and how did they make it work representing smaller countries? And I mean, they had to make it happen, right? Like they didn't just
And did that mom know how to jump or what? Even if it was to the 800th iteration of Aladdin, she was like jumping over the entire arena on those Lutzes. Yeah.
So I think they need to start marketing him and that parental backstory and overcoming the odds and all of that stuff.
I mean, he seems like, it's interesting, and they were talking about it in the Paulina Christie interview, like how does one use social media? Mm-hmm. He's the one maximizing it. Even guys like Camden or Isabeau or all these other young skaters that are doing well. It's just sort of a generic social media presence, and this guy is like in your face, which some people don't like, but if you're going to play the game, that's the way to do it. So I find his social media presence, he's one of the few skaters I choose to follow.
Yeah, although I have to say, as much as the jumps are amazing, watching and judging some of the events, even from 5, 6, 7 years ago, Patrick Chan, 2016, 4 continents, Joshua Ferris, 2015, 4 continents, 2015 nationals. I think you see the most the best combined programs that engaged me the most. And I wonder if they would engage an audience the most. I think it's good to have the diversity of the jumper versus the all-around skater, but I don't think that they should just give the jumper automatically the points for components.
100%. I mean, but part of that argument is the fun of skating. And that was the only thing that drew like a side eye from me on Susanna's documentation, is she wanted to like push singles as like brave technicians. And I was like, yeah, but I don't go back and rewatch a lot of brave technical programs as much as I go back and watch the ones that gave me chills and they're emotional.
Go watch Joshua Ferris's step sequence in Schindler's List from 2015 into the triple axel 3-jump combo. And tell me if skating has gone the wrong way.
It was always my favorite. It was even intriguing to me because when he was with Jason at Junior World, I love Jason. Jason's incredible, but even back then there was something about Joshua skating that just kind of gripped me a little bit more emotionally. And I remember we first covered him at the 2014 Four Continents.
Yes, yeah.
And I couldn't get enough. Every movement with every note of music, it was unparalleled to me. Even when he did so well at Nationals a few years later, I wasn't quite as moved as I was in those initial programs. Well, I mean, I miss him tremendously. That was.
I just think like his skating, Patrick. Like if you're looking at the rules, my opinion, that is where I would. Where you're doing some quads, but you're also doing real skating, and I think that they have to find a way to do the judging because I think that there's been something missing. And that's,
unless because again, like what we're watching from Ilia, for example, are isolated just moments of like technical ability, which is cool. But again, to me, the technique is only there to serve the interpretation. So if you're not interpreting anything, I don't know.
Like think about Mariah Bell's program doing so well when it was like really being shared a ton on Facebook the 1 year after she did Hallelujah at the Nationals. That was all about emotion and performance. She wasn't doing the most difficult jumps, but it wasn't the greatest artistry we've ever seen, but it had a genuine emotion to it, and people responded to it, viewing it. And I always like think about that when you think about. I think.
Well, you used to do. Was it like a Favorite Things Friday, or do you remember you used to do that like blog thing? And you did one where it was called Some of the Greatest Performances That Didn't Win, or something like that. And it was like Daisuke's silver medal in 2012, I think, at Worlds, and these sorts of things. Those are the ones you rewatch. Those are the ones that then audience responds to and will live forever, not the one that technically won out always that day.
And I don't think that program needs to win per se, but I do think it needs to be competitive, right? And it doesn't, not just like there's a reason why people respond to Luna Hendricks's skating and Cowrie's and not just the jump drills. So.
Yeah, 100%, especially for the general public, which is being told to appreciate something technically. Now, if Midori Ito does a triple axel, it is undeniable to anyone watching that the thing is enormous and exciting. Some of these like eked out quaddy moments, they don't have the same impact to the general public, I find.
But do you know why Midori's also worked well? It's because it looked like she was having fun.
Yes!
And even Tanya Harding looked like she was enjoying what she was doing to a degree. And you have to think that the IJS has stripped people of individuality where they have to check all of these boxes and do all of these positions. And that's how we've gotten more generic and things being more the same. So anything that could increase the individuality, I am for. And I think that-
And takes away from, if we're just admiring hard work and concentration and grit, I don't wanna see someone so effortful. There's something about the effortlessness in something like that that's always the most appealing to me.
And not to sound like an octogenarian, however, I do agree when they're, I think that they need to revamp spins. And I thought that Christy had a real point about the step sequences that don't have anything to do with the music because they have to have high and low, and the requirements of a step sequence are such that you have to do a degree of flailing or changing of plane because you have to show upper and lower movement, right? But it doesn't always match the music. But you could, and sometimes you get the Joshua Ferris or the Patrick that does, but you get the 30 skaters in the field Who does, right?
This happens in opera all the time, where the director will say, like, at some point, I need you to walk over here and make sure that, like, this door gets open or something like that. And then you'll get the note, like, but don't make it look like you're just doing that because I told you you have to go open the door. And that's what these step sequences remind me of. It's like, well, it looks like someone told you you have to go down. Well, someone did tell them they have to go down, even though nothing about the music would have them do that. Same with the spins. At some point, we decided these quirky positions and number of positional changes are more important than just the speed, centering, and beauty of a spin, which again, we know that the general public will respond so much more to a scratch spin at the end of a program than something that's much more complex, has 85, position changes and is not aesthetically pleasing.
And I just want to, like, because the people get a lot of points in spins, and I just want to say, I do think that there's a lot of value in terms of the different positions. However, I think that there's a problem when people do like a change combination spin and then a flying change combination spin, and they're almost exactly the same, with slight variations. I think what would help is if maybe you have to do a combo spin, like if they changed it where like you have to do a combo spin with the different positions, but maybe one of the 3 spins should still be worth the same, but be judged on quality.
Yes.
And be judged harder on quality than the other spins. And that would actually encourage people to work on positioning and centering and blurring and something like that. So whatever spin you pick, it has to be amazing. So if you have a good camel and you're like Roman Sadovsky, who could do a camel and then change position and do something cool to get credit in that way, I think would be good. That way we don't just have to see you change the positions and take up and have it being responded to the music as something that's like in the criteria, even though ostensibly they're supposed to, but they don't. So, right, and kind of the way that they have opened up ice dance with the choreographic elements, but they have to still make them worth points to be worth focusing on. And I think that that's where
and it's informative with the choreographic sequence in the singles programs as well. Like you see some people finally feel liberated and they can do something really cool. And then you see other people that like don't really know what to do with that freedom. And they just do more of the same kind of thing because they've not been cultivating this sort of open moment of expression and one cool move that can enhance the program. And more stuff like that would be great.
So I respond really well when I judge. When I judge on quality. Really, like I really am like a hammer. Like a really. I made someone. We judged the 2015 and the 2016 ladies, and I judged the 2018 Olympics with you. I didn't realize I was as big of a fan of certain skaters until I actually went and like judged event to event.
And look at the quality instead of the quantity. Yeah.
Who was my?
Which one surprised you the most?
Who was my 2016 world champion, Jonathan?
Wait, hold on. I have to go back. That was Boston.
Yeah.
It wasn't Ashley, was it?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know because that one was Medvedeva.
Didn't win.
Ashley.
Didn't give her the win. Didn't give her the win.
And then Gracie.
Didn't give her the win.
Who was fit there? Was it Satoko?
Satoko.
Yeah. Well, to me, I give her every medal all the time.
And you judge skating skills and the components accurately and not just based on who's landing the jumps. And you start to look at like the choreographic sequence.
Every time. The girl was brilliant.
But like
absolutely brilliant.
I'm not giving her the GOE on any of the jumps.
Right.
No, I'm not.
Right.
But when you're judging everyone and you're trying to judge things the way that they're supposed to be judged, she actually comes up a lot higher than you would think. And it's like shocking when you do the math, because it's not like I'm like cheating for her up the wazoo. It's just like, oh, she actually has choreography. Oh, she actually has interpretation of the music.
And then subsequently, if you judge the other people fairly, when you're like, yeah, but that's not really choreographically, elevated. So the numbers should go down as a result. The sophistication of all of her programs to me always had her sky high. But when we first started doing the rejudging of things on Patreon, I often found myself like afraid to be honest because so many things got so changed. I'll remember when it was, I think it was Shizuka Arakawa in '98, where I like plummeted her up like 10 spots. But you're just sort of like, oh yeah, if I'm actually being honest with myself, I don't get it. why that person is high and that person is low. I truly believe it should be the other.
Boston World's one of the most interesting ones to go back and watch. And I didn't hate on anyone. I just
called it like you saw it. Yeah.
Sachiko Stan, apparently. I just like,
yeah, I've always been.
but like I'm like, well, she has the best choreographic sequence.
Right.
She's got the best step sequence. She's got the best layback. She's got the best camel spin. She has the best components.
She maximized everything that she could in lieu of those jumps. But it's so funny, we've had some medalists from various Olympics and Worlds on the show where it's almost a complete discreditation of her entirely because of the lack of jumps.
Yeah.
So it's just, okay, fine. So she will have to be
and
worked down in his result. But
I gave Medvedeva +3 on the triple sow, triple toe in the second half. Like, it's not like, you know,
but you don't have to take away from one, but
no.
Yeah, but she should have been taken away from on the choreographic sequence compared to a Satoko, if that's the standard, you know.
It's really interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, lots happening in there. Lots interesting. Yes, real judging. Yes. The
Funny
people are the
that.
problem.
Yeah.
COVID edge looks sexy, everyone.